The second, planning and zoning commission. Can I get all commission members, please?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I unmuted the wrong computer.
Okay.
Commissioner Helfrey, Commissioner Rubis, Commissioner Cohn. Here. Commissioner Broyles,
Here.
Commissioner Clayton,
Here.
Commissioner Depler.
Here.
Ms. Depler's here on Zoom. Commissioner Jackson. Here. Chair Beatty,
Here.
Councilmember Bros, and Mayor Bolin.
Thank you. Tonight on the agenda, we have 5 public hearings, 1 letter of recommendation, 5 information reports, 3 correspondence, and 2 items of other business. Can I get an approval of the minutes from September 5th, please? Motion by Commissioner Broyles, seconded by Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and those in attendance tonight at City Hall as well as on Zoom. The department received from the representatives of Latitude North 38 a request for a postponement this past Wednesday. As you know, in the Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws, if a request for postponement is received the Wednesday before the Monday meeting, it is accepted without action of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So if there is anyone in attendance, or if you as commission members were expecting a discussion tonight, that matter has been postponed, and it will return to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the Monday, November 6th meeting. There is another item for consideration relative to postponement that was received after the deadline, and it does require a vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we'll go into public comment session. If you wish to speak on any of the items not under public hearing tonight, now is your time to speak. And Travis?
I just wanted to, sorry, I was raising my hand to indicate that I'm the person who accepts the speaker cards.
Okay, yeah, if you want to speak on anything, please give them to Travis right here, and we will put you on the list. And as a reminder, 3 minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker card is for Mr. Degnan.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Steve Degnan, 4024 Princeton Ridge Drive in Wildwood, Ward 6. I'll be very brief tonight, and I want to just offer a positive comment. I want to thank you in advance for what I think will be a positive meeting tonight in advancing some of our solar projects along, hopefully mine. This has been a learning experience for me, very interesting. Thank you for doing the survey, and thank you for listening to the public. And I hope we'll move forward with those things. I believe having these panels throughout the community is a good thing. I think it'll add value to Wildwood. I think it'll make it a more attractive place, a more flexible place for people like me that want to have installations like this. And just again, thank you. I'm appreciative that we're about to move this thing forward.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, Mr. Chair, is Ms. Pearson.
Good evening. My name's Teresa Pearson, and I'm one of the trustees of the Manors at the Meadows at Cherry Hills. I'm here hoping that we will get, thank you. I am here hoping that we can get the approval for the city acceptance of the maintenance for our alleys. We have 2 small alleys. They total 800 feet in length. Our subdivision consists of 38 homes. Our assessment is $500 a year, which totals $19,000 in revenue. Out of that $19,000, we pay $5,000 in snow plowing alone. That plus the maintenance of the electricity for the streetlights equals 36% of our budget. 36%. we are losing money every year. The reason we pay so much is because we have to hire a contractor to come out and plow these two small alleys. Whereas the city is coming out and plowing Cherry Hills Meadows Drive and Cherry Hollow Court anyway. These are streets that are intersecting with our alleys. So I don't think it's going to cost that much more for the city to then plow these two totaling 800 feet alleys. So I'm asking for your approval for this. I do want to make a comment. When I was doing my research for tonight, I saw that somebody had from the enclaves at Cherry Hills had submitted a comment that they were hoping this wouldn't be approved because they said he didn't want to pay for the maintenance, the snow plowing of these people's driveways. And I know you guys know it's not driveways. These are alleys that lead to these people's driveways. So I just wanted to make that clear so everybody knows these are not the people's driveways. Thank you for your consideration and have a good evening.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is Mr. Loyal.
Good evening. I'm Vince Loyal. I live at 154 Stella Cherry Way and I'm in Ward 8. I've had the good fortune of serving in the city of Wildwood for the Town Center Update team. I worked with several members of this committee and it's good to see you again. It's hard to believe that in 5 years we'll be reconvening that organization. So we look forward to once again revisiting the issues that impact Town Center. I also continue to serve as a member of the Board of Public Safety for the city of Wildwood. And I'm a past trustee for the Homeowners Association, other managers of the Meadows at Cherry Hills. I'm here tonight to speak and hoping that you guys will support the transition of our two alleys into streets for the city of Wildwood. Our committee on Town Center did considerable amount of work, listened to a lot of folks have comments, and that was one of our primary recommendations to the city. It has since that time followed all the appropriate processes to get to this point. So I am asking that you continue that process, respect and appreciate the work of the members of Town Center Update team and those folks that live in Town Center and approve those movements tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Ms. Babb.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Frances Babb, 2001 Kerrsdale Court in Clarkson Valley. And I'll be a person of very few words tonight for a change. Look at the big smile on his face. In light of everything that has happened, not only on the solar issue with the solar survey and all the misery that these applicants have kind of gone through for months on end. In light of that, and then you have a whole lot of things that have rustled feathers, okay, not only solar wise, but also trash collection wise, high density housing wise, a lot of feathers have been rustled. So my recommendation for you all is to approve all of these solar applications that are before you. And also I'll say the same thing at next week's city council meeting, but to approve them as they were submitted to you without additional modifications. That's my recommendation. And my second recommendation is for you all to chill out about this symmetry issue. Already, there has been a leaf blower fluffing these feathers all over the place. And I think it's time that the feathers settle down and the leaf blower gets turned off and everybody move forward and get on with their lives. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker is Mr. Mollenhoff.
Molyneux, 2359 West Club Terrace Court, Wildwood, Missouri. I have lived here for 37 years. Sounds like I'm the only person that doesn't want the solar panels. But I firmly believe that they're not going to improve the value. I just can't understand why someone says they prove the value when you see this massive piece of armor on top of your roof and it's visible from the street. So I'm sorry if that's not popular, but that's the way, it just is. And apparently the city of Wildwood agreed with me that we really don't want that. So I'm very sorry for the people that have gone through all this expense and all this effort. But at the same time, when they moved here, they should have known. If they didn't know, it's because they didn't inquire. So I'm very sorry for that, but I am totally against it. And I have not talked to anyone that likes it. If they want to put it on the backside of their house, God help, that's fine. Absolutely. I'd love to do it in my own home, but I've got 2 huge trees back there that would block the sun. So that's pretty much all I got to say. Please don't pass this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. McMurray. And Mr. Oliver.
Good evening, Joel Oliver from Green Street Development. We're here to talk about item number 8.
Can you give your address as well?
Sure, it's 164 South Elm Avenue.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're speaking tonight on item 8C. Wanted to make sure I got that right. On the modification for the proposal next door to the movie theater. So we're excited to be here and to be able to talk to you guys later about it tonight. Thanks.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Ms. Cronin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Keely Cronin. I live at 16661 West Glen Farms Drive, but I'm here tonight representing B&B Theaters in Wildwood. I'm here to speak in favor of developing the land in Main Street. I'm here to advocate for revitalizing town center and increasing our foot traffic. Our business has survived the pandemic thanks to the support of our community, and this, development would increase that. We would love to welcome moviegoers and those just purchasing concessions. We would love to welcome more people to Wildwood, and what makes this community special. Living in Wildwood is such a blessing, and we would love to increase that for more people. So thank you so much for considering this. We would love to welcome more people to Wildwood with that development. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, that completes the speaker cards received in the city council chambers. However, there are a number of in attendance via Zoom. If you don't mind, I'll just give the instruction. If you want to speak during the public comment session, now would be the time to use the raise hand feature.
All right, we'll give that a minute to see if anyone wants to speak. Seeing no hands, we will move on to our public hearings tonight. In the city of Wildwood, public hearings are truly intended to accept comments and questions concerning these posted items. Since these requests are being presented at a public hearing, no action is planned on these items tonight, and consideration of them is to be taken no earlier than the November 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This approach ensures the members of the commission will hear all opinions before taking any action. The city's Department of Planning will address the comments, questions, and concerns that are raised tonight, include them as part of its formal recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anyone in attendance at City Hall tonight wanting to speak should fill out a speaker's card and leave it with Mr. Newberry. Those in attendance via the Zoom webinar platform should use the raise hand feature to indicate you wish to speak at these hearings. A team member will add you to the list of speakers, which will then be communicated to me as chair, and I will invite you to speak when it is your turn. The public hearing process is outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, which can be found on the table at the entry to the council chambers. These guidelines are also provided on tonight's online meeting agenda. The commission will allow all parties adequate time to present their position. As outlined in the public hearings pamphlet, speakers who are designated as a group speaker representing more than 5 individuals will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. Those individuals representing themselves will be allocated 3 minutes to speak. In addition, information on these items can be found on the city's website at www.cityofwildwood.com. The commission would like to thank you for your cooperation and participation in tonight's hearing. All right, let's see here. We've got PZ 13-23. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. PZ 13-23, Union Electric Company doing business as Ameren, Missouri, 1901 Shoto Avenue, MC 700, St. Louis, Missouri, 63103. Care of Susan Story, Selective Solutions LLC, 340 Marshall Road, Valley Park, Missouri, 63088. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, within the NU non-urban resident district for a 14.6 acre tract of land for which a portion of this lot is to be utilized for a monopole type of telecommunications facility along with the associated enclosed equipment area. The tract of land is generally located on the south side of St. Albans Road, State Route T, west of the intersection with State Route 100. Street address 18824 St. Albans Road, St. Louis County locator number 24Y 630140. Proposed use, a 199-foot telecommunications tower and related equipment area. Again, the tower is proposed to be a monopole type with exterior antenna arrays. This property is located in Ward 6. Mr. Chair, before Mr. Newberry provides a short slide presentation, the department would like to enter into the record the following items: the city's charter, the city's master plan, particularly its conceptual land use categories map, Chapter 415-500 of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, the conditional use permit procedures, the file that has been developed and maintained by the department and all contents contained therein regarding this particular request, and then finally, any items offered as part of tonight's hearing as evidence or testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as usual, the department has prepared a brief slideshow presentation to orient you to the property through a few slides here. Okay, this first slide shows an aerial of the location of the property. It's located on the south side of St. Albans Road or State Highway T, west of its intersection with State Route 109. It's highlighted in the light blue area. The next one will be a closer up image. Again, this is an aerial of the subject site. The graded areas with gravel that you see here were put in place to accommodate a laydown yard that is no longer in place, or is being resolved. The next slide is a photograph of the subject site looking to the east. Again, where you can see the gravel areas that you had seen on the aerial image. On the left-hand side of the photograph is St. Albans Road, State Highway T. And the next are just a series of photographs in the subject site. This is looking towards the west. You can see the transmission lines that are along the property. This is looking directly south towards the tree line of on the property. And then these are a few shots of St. Albans Road. This is looking to the west at the entrance area that currently exists. And this is looking towards the east. The next few photographs were provided by the petitioner and show a rendering of one more. This is the property directly across the street from the subject site. It's a single family residence. And then, I'm sorry, I'm off here. Here's another shot of the site of the transmission lines. These are the photographs that show the rendering of the proposed tower on the site. Again, this picture was taken before the laydown yard was the equipment was removed from the laydown yard. So that's currently not there today. That's photos that you saw earlier were taken last week. And then another rendering of the tower. You can see it kind of towards the middle of the photo between the two utility lines. And then this is just a plan view of the portion of the property where the entrance is to be located and the placement of the tower and the facility associated with it. And then just a elevation of the proposed tower with the triangular rays is provided in this image here. And that concludes the department's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Are there any comments on this from the public?
Mr. Chair, if you could give the opportunity to the applicant to speak to the matter,
Okay,
department would appreciate it.
we can do that. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Russell Bean. I'm with Selective Solutions. My address is 340 Marshall Road, Valley Park, Missouri, 63088, and I am here representing Ameren.
All right, thank you.
If I may give you a little brief history of the project, Ameren is constructing a private LTE network. The LTE network will be used to monitor their system and also for their meter reading purposes. Currently, Ameren has outgrown, they are currently operating on private networks, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. They have outgrown the number of devices that they could put on these networks. They are going to build their own private network and actually see a savings over the amount of money they're paying each month for operating on these private networks. The other reason that they are looking at this network, as you're all familiar with, the telephone companies recently made a change from 4G LTE to 5G. But when they were doing that, a lot of the existing equipment for, say, private security companies and a lot of educational networks were rendered obsolete. They were actually forced to keep their LTE on so that a lot of these educational companies could update their equipment. By having a private LTE network, they're able to utilize the proposed equipment for a longer period of time. They're estimating that the life cycle of their devices will be extended by over 10 years. This also allows them greater security on their network. They are under obligation by the Homeland Security to have a secure network, and by operating their own private LTE, they will be able to maintain a secure network. If I may, is it all right if I hand out a packet? So I'll apologize. These are not flagged. Our printer seems to know exactly what days we have meetings on, and it goes on the fritz. And so we were printing these last minute and actually had to go to a Kinko's to finish printing. So I apologize.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, it's like it knows. The first couple pages are what Travis already showed you. So I'd like to go to the survey page, if I may. And I'd like to point out the setbacks of this tower. The setbacks as required by the City of Wildwood ordinance are 1-to-1 the height of the tower. And as you can see, we are the closest property line that we are is to the south, and that is 224 feet. We are 328 feet from the west, 309 feet from the north, and 480 feet to the east. We are proposing a 199-foot monopole style tower. We actually talked Ameren's radio frequencies engineers down. They wanted to go 250. We actually talked them down to 199 to prevent this tower from having to be lit. In our packet, you'll see towards the end, we do have a FAA no hazard of air navigation letter, which indicates that the tower will not have to be lit. At the last Planning and Zoning Commission, Ameren promised that they would clean up the site, the laydown yard. They have gotten rid of everything on the laydown yard, pretty much everything on the laydown yard. And they are currently working on removing the gravel. So that will be gone as well. We are proposing an asphalt drive and an asphalt apron as required by MoDOT. So that'll be per Wildwood code as well. The photo sims on the next couple of pages, I'm not going to lie, they were strategically taken to show that we are on a property with existing vertical structures. We are adding a vertical structure along that would be just an additional vertical structure to what's already there. We are proposing a, actually, I'm gonna make you flip back. We're proposing a very small compound. And it would be surrounded with a site-proof fence and additional landscaping surrounding the site-proof fence. This is the, this tower would serve all of Wildwood and the surrounding municipalities. The closest tower there's in the what we call the St. Louis LTE market, there's 42 towers, 18 of which are in St. Louis County. Our nearest site to this is in Ellisville, which is over 5 miles away. And then the one to the north is in O'Fallon, Missouri, which is almost 8 miles away. By building to the 199-foot limit, that's preventing us from having to put multiple towers in the Wildwood area. This tower would serve Wildwood by would be currently monitoring the entire power distribution network in Wildwood. If a transformer, if you drive by and you see a transformer, they all have these little antennas on them now. And that's speaking to the monitoring network. If that transformer goes down, or that substation goes down, or that distribution pole goes down, that is immediately notified to Ameren's network, and they can immediately dispatch a crew to take care of the problem, keeping those outages to the shortest time possible. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
Commissioner Helfrey.
So I have a couple questions for you. Thank you for your presentation. One of the things that you said was that it would save Ameren a lot of money. So I'm hoping that that's going to pass the savings on to us, because my electric bill went way up. So is that going to happen? Is the money that they save, are they going to pass that on to us?
That will, and here's the politically correct answer to that question, is that will help delay future rate increases.
All right. Thank you for that answer. The next question I have is, will you share the tower? If a cell phone company comes and says, we'd like to put our stuff on your tower, will you be able to share that tower?
Yes.
Okay. And then you said that you will, you have things on other towers right now, and that you've kind of outgrown that system. So will you remove the things from those towers?
Well, it's not, we don't have stuff located on those towers.
Okay.
Our equipment is broadcasting to, I'm just going to say Verizon. We're broadcasting through Verizon's antennas.
Okay.
So we really don't have anything. There are some Ameren towers that exist, but it's more for their point-to-point radio.
Okay.
As we introduce this new system, these current antennas, like the ones I told you on the transformers, and then the meter readings, those are actually broadcasting to, say, Verizon or AT&T through their existing network. We're going to stop broadcasting through Ameren and AT&T, and then we're going to start broadcasting through our own network.
Okay, I have two more questions for you. One is that when I was looking at all these drawings over the weekend, on one of them, and I believe it was page 13 of 23 on Travis's thing, it states that there's a chain link fence on the property. Is that still there?
I believe they've taken everything that was on there
So the chain link fence will be gone.
is gone. The only
Okay.
thing that's going to be there after they get the gravel cleaned up is going to be this telecommunications tower.
Okay, then my last request would be that before you all come to us the next time, I would just like to see a rendering of what your site fence is going to look like in the landscaping, because there is a house across the street. So I'd like to just make sure that what they look at is okay.
Would it be all right if we emailed it to Travis?
Yes,
He
you
could
work it out
distribute?
with them. Mhm,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect. Absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Jackson.
So I do this for a living. I'm more fiber optics than PLT. So if anyone has any questions or you do on that, please feel free, straightforward. But I do have one question. It's more curiosity. Are you using a private licensed network or spectrum, or are you using CBRS?
We are using a private spectrum.
That's what I assumed.
It is leased currently. There is some spectrum that is sitting there from a dish auction that is potentially becoming available. If that spectrum becomes available, the company, we are planning on trying to acquire that spectrum. But currently they're using private leased spectrum.
Since I was here, I was just curious. No big deal.
All right, we'll go in order. Commissioner Cohn.
Okay, Creative Solutions LLC, you're a private for profit company,
Yes, sir.
and you will be leasing the ground for the
Oh.
site.
No, sir. We just represent Ameren. Ameren owns the property and Ameren would be utilizing the property.
Oh. Thank you.
Commissioner Rubis.
So today, Wildwood resident, how is their bill generated?
They have on each, there's either one or two ways. They're either, they have a radio, meter with a radio installed that will broadcast to the network that reads their meter and tells them, you know, how many kilowatt hours were used. Or in those situations, there is a lack of available towers per se in Wildwood. In those cases, they actually have someone that's going out and reading those meters still.
And Commissioner Broyles.
Sure, absolutely. What we are planning on is a vinyl site-proof fence. And currently, we're just saying white because that's what's out there, but we would be happy to make whatever color available that Wildwood would prefer. And then we're going to have the 10-foot landscape strip surrounding that with the, as required by Wildwood's ordinance, a 10-foot landscaping strip with the deciduous trees and evergreens.
So the accessibility of it is going to be fine for the people that are going to come in and check it and look at it and climb it or whatever they have,
Yes,
to
yes,
do.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And it will have again, the gate as the entrance will also be site-proof vinyl fence.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
So this is really good for the city because like storm restoration, all those antennas that they're talking about, So they're able to pinpoint precisely where they need to go and fix a problem with this newer technology. So this will be good for the citizens of Wildwood. Just my 2 cents. I definitely am going to be supporting it pending they satisfy that home that you're worried about. Ms. Helfrich.
And he's absolutely correct. They'll be able to say, transformer number 172 located in front of 1275 St. Albans Drive is out. And then when they send the trucks, they're not going down looking at the various poles. They're going to the problem spot.
Councilman Brost.
Yes, I know the one photo shows a post. Is that just as an example? Like this just like the post is not constructed as at this time.
That's correct. What we did was we went and there is a existing 199-foot tower for this system that is constructed in Jefferson County. We measured off the distance from where this picture was took to that tower, took a picture, and then went and took this picture at that distance, then photoshopped the tower out and then dropped that in. So that's a pretty accurate representation of what this is going to look like when it's constructed.
And then the excess land, is that going to become an issue again for the city?
And I know this was a pretty serious issue that was discussed at length at the last meeting. And there are a lot of captains on the ship at Ameren, and this was a pretty major discussion between, we're on the small motorboat compared to the larger cruise ships that are in Ameren. But it was relayed down that their only goal in this property is keeping the city of Wildwood happy. So they've pretty much let it known that without approval of this board and a city council, that property is not to be used for anything unless it's approved by the city of Wildwood.
Thank you.
And that was a situation where they were using that for a short period and it was contractors and they just assumed that all was well. And when Ameren knew it was found out that it was an issue, they took care of it. I mean, you can see the pictures now, they cleaned it up quick. And as I mentioned, their goal is to make sure this property causes no heartburn to the city.
I have a question possibly for Mr. Young. Does this fall under the new cellular legislation?
I believe that it would based on our definitions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? No. All right, looks like there is one hand up on Zoom, and do you have any speaker cards?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I have a speaker card here in the council chambers and correctly identified a hand up on Zoom. So I'll start with Mr. Hahn.
Paul Hahn, 19073 Bear Trail, Wildwood, Missouri. I'm in the 6th Ward. Just a couple of facts here that weren't laid out. I don't think we can trust Ameren on this issue. They had a temporary use order for that property for 2 years. They stayed there 12 years, 10 years of which they had no land use. They had no legal authority to be there. And then only when they got caught did they think about doing something about it as a dump yard for the poles and things. Secondly, there's all kinds of land in Chesterfield Valley. Every time I go down there, there's 6 acres for sale, 12 acres for sale, 18 acres for sale. There's other property. We don't want to turn this into a mini Chesterfield Valley West because there's a whole bunch of other land headed up toward Highway 100. And if this can have big poles on it and whatever else, why can't the rest of it be developed in a similar way? It's a bad precedent. There on the vinyl fence around, he forgot to mention that they will have signs that say radiation, danger radiation, high radiation if you get close to it. And another thing, it's not on the same property as the high power lines. It's a property detached significantly from those high power lines. That's not true. So anyway, I don't think you can trust them a bit on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Larson, who has his hand up on Zoom, is on his way in.
Okay.
Hello. Brian Larson, 2901 Country Point Lane, Court. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
I had two questions. One is that a question as to why couldn't you use an existing tower, for example, the AT&T tower along Wild Horse Creek Road that is less than a mile from this property? And the second question for the Ameren representative is whether the frequency that's planning to be used would have any detrimental effect to the other AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, et cetera, coverage in the area.
Can we have?
Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing. While it's a gentleman's opportunity to speak before this body, it's not a question and answer session by the residents.
All right, thank you.
He's allowed to if he chooses to respond, and the commission wants to allow it.
So. Is that everything?
There are no more speaker cards for this item, and there are no additional hands up on Zoom at this moment. I have a new speaker card, Mr. Chair.
I never have guessed.
Mr. Gerler.
Tim Gerler, Ward 6.
And your address, please?
Sure. 2727 St. Albans East Drive. A few things I would like to point out, as a continuation from the other issues that we've had with Ameren earlier this year, that another resident pointed out. But one of the things that I thought we were under agreement with was that this item wasn't even going to be open for public hearing until they were in compliance with the other issues that they're still currently not in compliance with. My understanding is that until the date passes that they were given, which is in 2024, that a hearing on this matter couldn't be held because they're still technically out of compliance until that is proven otherwise. Along with that, some other things I would point out is just trying to understand what the ultimate intention is for that property. I have it on pretty good authority that their intention was to sell that property after they had restored it back to their previous condition and the agricultural condition that it was in. And so I'm just trying to understand if this is a last minute money grab by Ameren, that they can put up this new pole that then they can lease out to some of these other cellular companies and continue to have that revenue coming in. As they mentioned, this was not only going to be a cost savings to them internally, but also potentially a source for outside income for them as well. And so now we are potentially limiting the future owner of that property by having restrictive use based on what they're proposing. Along those same lines, with the other hearing, we were talking about returning it to its previous agricultural use. This clearly isn't going to be used for agriculture. This is going to be another commercial construction on the same site. Again, I can appreciate the desire to have setbacks, but I think we could all understand if there's a 200-foot pole, whether you have it 200 feet back from the road or 200 feet back from your nearest neighbor, you're still going to be able to see it from Highway T. Thankfully, it wouldn't be lit, but I think that's only a small concession at this point in time. The other thing that I would point out is, was there any type of study that was done to determine if this was the best location for that type of tower to be constructed? Or are we simply entertaining this idea because it's a property that Ameren already owns? And again, back to my previous comments about, are we trying to use it for one last item before Wildwood has, in essence, asked them to move out from where they are? The other question that I haven't heard answered yet here tonight is, what is the coverage area for these towers? As one of the other residents have commented, if we have options that are in the area already, is the necessity truly there to put up another tower? Or do we have some redundancy that, again, isn't necessary at this point in time? The last comment that I'll have is in conflict with some of the other parts that were heard around the cleanup process. And
Time's up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, he's exceeded his 3 minutes that is allocated for an individual.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Newberry.
I have no additional speaker cards is all I wanted to enter.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to come back up and answer a couple of the questions that were presented earlier.
The first question is, why aren't we locating on the AT&T pole? One, it doesn't allow us to meet our coverage objective. Two, we have security concerns that requires us to locate on Ameren-owned property on an Ameren-owned tower. With this Ameren-owned tower, we're able to consolidate or conceal our equipment, make it inaccessible. Even if we do have additional co-locators, they would be outside our area. They would have their own area outside of ours to co-locate their equipment. The second question was about frequency. We are using a licensed frequency. We're not allowed to operate outside that frequency or operate in any other carrier's band. So we will have no effect whatsoever on any of the existing other carriers' transmissions.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the department received another speaker card for Ms. Hahn.
Hi, I'm Judy Hahn. I live with my husband at 19073 Bear Trail Road in Wildwood, which is the subdivision directly across, excuse me, from that goes up the hill from in the Hart Farm Road. I've heard comments from and questions from the commission. The majority of the comments are on the technical aspect of this and how's this going to help and what's this going to do. And as a resident, though, and where I live for 34 years, I'm really concerned about how this is going to look and how it's going to affect Wildwood, and also how it's going to affect my property values and the value of, excuse me, of the 70 homes in our subdivision. One of the things that you didn't get to see tonight, which is on the website and the proposal, is the signs. And the signage proves that the closer you get to this thing, the higher the radiation. And right away, that puts a red flag up for any real estate person or anybody who wants to buy my home someday. So I hope you would consider that to be one of the things, besides the fact that it is a danger to the citizens and to the wildlife around it. We had to deal with all those years of Ameren not maintaining that property, and they created a monster there. And we fought the monster back, hopefully, but we got a bigger monster out of it, and that's a 200-foot tower that we will all be able to see every day as we drive past there. There's no way in or out that's more, well, there's two ways in and out of that area. But one of them is we have to look at it every day, and we had to look at it for all that time. So as far as it being maintained, I'm very skeptical. As far as it having any beauty to it, it's not Wildwood. We have tower after tower that has continued to go up out there. And like my husband said, eventually with this precedent set, it will, and the precedent now of the commercial farm greenhouse going out and another, what seems to be semi-industrial that we're not going to address after all this evening, but quickly encroachment of that becoming another industrial looking area is not good for Wildwood either. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Is there any? All right, Commissioner Helfrey.
So my question is for Mr. Young, and it's just to kind of clarify something for my own edification. According to Missouri law, we are not allowed to say they can't put these towers up. Is that correct?
State and federal law significantly restrict the city's authority with regard to the regulation of wireless support structures.
So, but we can tell them how it has to look. I mean, it's landscaping,
We
and
have
maintenance and things like that.
some limited authority to continue to allow to say how they look, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is any further comments from the commission? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing? Motion by Commissioner Cone and second by Commissioner Rubis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That public hearing is closed. Thank you. Easy 21-23, Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the second public hearing is PZ 21-23, Elizabeth and Brian Vanderhayden, 16560 Birch Forest Drive, Wildwood, Missouri 63011, care of BKJ Solar, 907 Harbor Oak Court, Florissant, Missouri 63031. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the R3 10,000 square foot resident district with an associated planned environment unit, PEU, for the installation of roof-mounted solar panels, which are to be so situated on the subject dwelling as to be visible from the adjoining roadway, with such being located on the south side of Birch Forest Drive, west of its intersection with Forest Leaf Parkway. Street address 16560 Birch Forest Drive, St. Louis County locator number 23V 610034. This request is to be reviewed in accordance with chapter 415.140 R3 10,000 square foot resident district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, which establishes standards and requirements for the installation of solar panels. This requested permit is required due to the panel's placement on the side facing area of the dwelling's roof, thereby causing them to be visible from the adjoining roadway. This particular property is located in Ward 5.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
again, with the conditional use permit, the department would like to enter into the record the city's charter, the city's master plan, particularly the conceptual land use categories map, chapter 415.500 of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, the conditional use permit procedures, the file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request, and then finally any items that are offered as part of tonight's hearing as evidence or testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The department, again, has a brief slides presentation to orient you to the property. The first slide is an aerial image showing the property identified in the grand scheme of this area of Wildwood. It's very light blue on this slide. The next slide will be zoomed in a little bit. The property is again identified here with the light blue rectangle. It's on the south side of Birch Forest Drive. The first few photographs just show the front of the home, give you a general idea of the property. the large tree in the front yard area there. The next slide will show you the roof area that the proposed array is proposed to be placed, and that is the side facing roof there beyond the windows there. And the next slideshow the next exhibit will show the proposed location of the new array. It's four panels on that side facing roof visible from the street. And that concludes the department's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Is there any questions or comments from the commission? Or does the petition, sorry, let me get this right. Does the petitioner wish to speak on this matter?
Mr. Vanderhayden has turned in a speaker card.
All right.
Good evening to the commission. My name is Brian Vanderhayden. I'm along here with my wife, Betsy Vanderhayden, Elizabeth Vanderhayden. And we are here, of course, as petitioners in front of planning and zoning for PZ 2123. I have a set of remarks that I was going to read off that we've prepared just to express to you, and we thank you, of course, having this opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. So one of the things we wanted to say was that the results of the solar survey that showed that Wildwood residents support allowing roof mounted solar panels facing the street at a margin of nearly 2-to-1, with 56% of surveys returned. And we want to say that we think that's a really positive response for expanding solar projects in our city, which I might add, we've been here for over 26 years. Even though new solar legislation is being drafted, as we hear, even tonight, the city of Wildwood must adjudicate and expedite all of the projects that have been unfairly delayed or denied during this past year. We actually were going to do this back in April, and we were told that we had to hold off until this point in time. And so at present, there's no new solar regulations that are in place that would apply to current requests, is what we can see. We're basing this on the widely accepted results of the referendum or the solar survey that was recently held in the city. And we assume that visible solar panels will be granted conditional use permits, hopefully this evening. And we expect that our request for additional solar panels, which are going to be on the backside of our house, since we already have solar panels on the south facing part, would be approved. And we also might add that there's no way we could put panels on the front side of our house since it faces north, and it would be totally ineffective. And, one of our things was that we thought that maybe it might take scheduling a second planning and zoning commission meeting in the month of October, this month, in order for the city council to take action on approving many of these delayed projects, not only for us, but also for our fellow residents and neighbors in the city. And then that would allow us to be able to have this be approved at the upcoming November 13th meeting, if not sooner. And so one thing we do want to point out is that Ameren is offering rebates for those people that are doing solar installations, and there is a mid-December deadline looming for those rebates. So we were hoping that we, as well as some of the others that are applying for conditional use permits for their solar projects, would be able to take advantage of those rebates before they expire. And some of those are significant, and they would help them with financing the project. And of course, we would also be compensated, for turning in one of those rebates. So under current solar regulations, there's no requirements for solar arrays to be symmetrical, limited to squares or rectangles. We've heard that already. And this is true for both projects approved through the planning department or through the CUP process. And so this requirement should not be imposed on any current or future applications. A requirement like this will greatly impact any solar project's return on investment, as we've seen in our own personal case over a year now, and reduce benefits on getting our Ameren bills to be very low, which we have been blessed with this year. And of course, my wife and I would like to also say that we support all applicants that are requesting any front facing or visible panels in their CUPs and allowing for their projects to have symmetrical or asymmetrical arrays. And that is respectfully submitted by Brian and Betsy Vanderhayden. And be glad to answer anything or any questions.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Are there any questions from the commission? All right. Do we have any, are there any speaker cards?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. We have one speaker card and then a hand raised on Zoom. The speaker card is from Mr. Girding.
I came home from vacation. Oh, Steve Girding, 16427 Green Pines Drive. And I've been a resident of this area since we built our home 37 years ago. Came home from vacation, found these in the mail. I don't know when they came. This one and the one that's on next. We have no opposition whatsoever to solar panels, whether they're on the front of the house, back of the house, side of the house. And I also think that when I talk to my kids who are in their 40s and 30s, they're astounded that there would be an implementation on this because there's such a movement to try to go to renewable energy sources. So I don't think it's going to hurt the property value in the long run. And even in the short run, there may be old timers who don't like it, but most people, I think, are going to accept this. And it doesn't look bad. It just looks different. So I say go ahead and help these people. And why does every one of these cases have to come before the committee? It just doesn't seem like it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember McCutcheon has her hand raised and she's coming in on Zoom.
Okay. Is she not accepting the promotion request?
Sorry. Oh, here she.
There. Councilmember McCutcheon, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. As they just mentioned, I'm Deborah Smith McCutcheon. I am council member for Ward 5. As you know, PZ 2123 and PZ 2223 are both requests from Ward 5 residents. PZ 2123 is the one in discussion, and I am in support of this item. And I am asking if you can please move that forward as is requested. And then I have a question for Mr. Young. Given the solar survey results and the rebate deadlines, is there a way for us to amend our typical procedure to move the solar items on the agenda this evening to the October council meeting?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to the speaker and her position, it's not appropriate for me to address comments or questions from the public.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yeah, Commissioner Jackson.
I thought the gentleman's last comment was so critical. Why is every one of these coming up for the P&Z? And that was why Mr. Vunich, Mr. Newberry did this great study to change the ordinance. Because you can flip it, right? Because before, a lot of these things would come up for a conditional use permit. And if someone complained, and I'm oversimplifying, well, no, if no one complained, oh, well, okay. So the ordinance is the ordinance. And so this may have taken a little bit longer, and there's been some delays, and that's very super unfortunate. My neighbors are here, and they have not benefited from the delays. But as city council changes the ordinance, right, wrong, or indifferent, then these don't come before city for P&Z and then up for a conditional use permit. And, you know, sometimes things take a little longer, but the right result comes out and you have a survey. So I think we're all relying on city council to take up this matter and That's up to them when they do, but just kind of give you some background of where we were and where we're at right now. And I hope I didn't overstep my bounds, Beatty, but I just want to make a comment because he asked the question, why are these coming up every time? Yes, they shouldn't be.
All right. Councilman Brost.
Yeah, I guess for everyone's benefit, I have solar on my house. It was installed in 2010. You can't see it from the road. I respect and certainly will follow the survey. I would have voted against front facing panels. I would not put them on the front of my home. I wouldn't want to see them on the front of my home, but that's me. So I would have been on, the other side. But I think as we move forward, we want to have a consensus. Mr. Young, I hope I can ask you a question. The pending legislation, do you feel it is prudent to pass these this evening or wait until legislation is complete?
Well, as of right now, you have application pending under the laws that currently exist, and it is appropriate for this commission to act on those as they currently exist.
So would they continue as a CUP and come up every year then?
I don't believe that's how we typically have our CUPs coming up every year.
They don't come back again?
Mr. Brost, in some instances, the department does establish a renewal period for the conditional use permits. We do that a lot with telecommunications facilities because they do have a track record of not maintaining their sites to the standards we like. In these instances, particularly the 4 reports that we have coming up as the next item on the agenda, we've not established any renewal period.
Okay.
It's just once the conditional use permit is granted, it'll be for perpetuity or for however long there is solar panels on the dwelling.
So for their benefit as well as the city, there's no ongoing maintenance of that agreement.
That's correct, sir. And with the permission of the chair, I think it's a critical question I'd like to try to answer from the department's perspective. Tonight, we have these items for public hearing. The procedure for public hearings has always been, since the inception of the city, to take comment, and then the department prepares a report. As you know, under information reports, we have a group of solar energy system applications. We are asking you tonight to not only vote on the information report, but to make it the letter of recommendation, which means those will go to City Council for their meeting on October 9th. And as you know, also conditional use permits are received and filed and become effective in 15 days. The City Council does have the right to waive that 15-day waiting period. So conceivably, the group of information reports on solar energy systems that's before the commission tonight could be acted upon finally by the commission and then to City Council. And if City Council waives the 15 days, they would become effective that evening. So those will move pretty fast. In the instances of these public hearings, the intent of the department is as follows. We've not prepared a report because, again, procedurally, we do not. But they will be at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on November 6th. The department will ask again for the information report to act as the letter of recommendation. They would be at City Council then on November 13th. And then again, City Council can waive the waiting period and they would become effective on November 13th. So from that perspective, in a matter of 6 weeks, these items before you tonight, in principle, could be approved and the department would release authorizations for them to be installed. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Helfrey.
So I guess my question, and I don't know if this is an appropriate place to ask this question, and it's actually directed at Mr. Young. I was hoping that when we do these approvals, assuming that the laws will be changed and updated, this is a perfect example. This house has 2 very large trees in the front of it. And my hope is that when the legislation is passed, that people are not allowed to cut down trees just to have solar panels. Because I think that there has to be a balance. and the trees are there, and that's been part of it. And we did have a situation in this West Glen neighborhood where someone came in front of the board and said, no, we won't cut down any trees. And we approved their panels, and then they cut them down. And if they didn't cut them down on their own, they went to the city council, and the city council just said, sure. So my hope is that as we pass these going forward, that somewhere in the rules, it's written that people can't just cut down trees just to put up solar panels in the front of their houses, especially because a lot of the streets in Wildwood have street trees. And those are the ones especially that I'm talking about. So is that possible?
Your comments are noted, been heard before and understood.
At least I'm consistent.
Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, the department received an additional speaker card from Mr. Molenhoff.
Two, 359 West Glen Terrace Court, Wildwood, Missouri. And my only question is, I hear that we had a survey that was presented to the people of Wildwood to approve these solar panels on the front of the house. I've never seen that. And I'd like to know when it was out and how it was addressed to the resident.
Is it all right if, do you want to answer that or should?
Mr. Chair, I'll defer to you if you prefer.
All right. So the survey, there was a number of houses randomly selected to receive the survey, and it was mailed out. There was also a link on the city's website where anyone could go fill it out.
But we weren't notified. So if you don't pay attention to that website on a daily basis, you're never going to know. And somebody chose where these surveys are going to. I have a problem with that. If you really want to do this and you really want to find out how the people of Wildwood feel, you should address each and every citizen of Wildwood, period. I don't understand why you wouldn't.
I didn't make the survey, but
I'm not pointing this at you, sir.
I understand.
So, I mean, that's just my comment. I'd like to make sure that everyone hears that. And I'd certainly hope that you folks will take that under consideration. If we do address every person in the Wildwood area, and if the overwhelming majority of everyone says, let's do this, then I'm sorry, I would have to bow down and say, still hate it, but I would agree to do it, allow it. But unless that happens, I just don't see how this is not going to cause a great deal of problems for you folks. And I'm obviously not an attorney, but I think you're going to walk into some lawsuits.
1 minute.
Sorry.
You can keep talking. You've got another minute to keep
I'm
talking.
just saying that I just think you're opening up a can of worms. And I don't think this whole thing was presented to all of the citizens of Wildwood. And if you make a dramatic change like this and don't address every citizen, are you doing your due diligence? I don't think so.
All right. Thank you for your comments. All right. Any other comments from the commission? If not, motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Councilman Bros, second by Commissioner Cone. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. That public hearing is closed. Let's see here. Mr. Vunich, PZ 22-23.
PZ 22-23, Lillian and Douglas Nearing, 16541 Winterleaf Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011. Care of Caitlin Blacklock, Sustainable Solar LLC, 4521 Town Court, St. Charles, Missouri, 63304. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the R3 10,000 square foot resident district with an associated planned environment unit, PEU, for the installation of roof mounted solar panels, which are to be so situated on the subject dwelling as to be visible from the adjoining roadway, with such being located on the west side of Winterleaf Drive, west of its intersection with Forest Leaf Parkway. Street address 16541 Winterleaf Drive, St. Louis County, locator number 23V 330105. This request is to be reviewed in accordance with chapter 415.140 R3 10,000 square foot resident district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, which establishes standards and requirements for the installation of solar panels. The requested permit is required due to the panels' placement on the front-facing area of the dwelling's roof, thereby causing them to be visible from the adjoining roadway. This particular property is located in Ward 5. And again, before Mr. Newberry begins the brief slide presentation, the department would like to enter into the record the city's charter, the city's master plan, including the conceptual land use categories map, chapter 415.500 of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, the conditional use permit procedures, the file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning relative to this particular request. And again, any items that are offered tonight as part of this hearing as testimony or evidence. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The department just has a brief slide presentation. The first slide shows you in the light blue dot in the center of the exhibit, the location of the property. The next slide is a closer up view of the home facing you can see the home faces to the south and east along Winterleaf Court. Winterleaf Drive, excuse me. And the next slide depicts the proposed array. The front of the home and the street that the panels are visible from is off to the right there. It's identified as Winterleaf Drive, and shows the arrays that would be visible from the street. And the next photographs are just a series of images of the front of the home from the street. And that concludes the department's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Would the petitioner like to come up and speak?
Mr. Chair, the department has not received a speaker card from anyone. There are several in attendance via Zoom.
All right. Let's hear Commissioner Helfrey.
Once again, I see that house has a street tree that's been removed. And I'm assuming that it's going to be replanted as the plan.
There has been a number of tree removals in both the West Glen Farm and Evergreen subdivisions. Unfortunately, those tree removals were due to the emerald ash borer. And yes, the intent is to replant street trees through our Department of Public Works.
So once the street tree is replanted, I guess my hope is that it's not going to not be replanted because they would have solar on the front of their house.
No, the city has control of the public right-of-way area, but given the size of the tree, I don't think we'll have an issue for many years.
Great, thank you.
Motion to close the hearing by Commissioner Rubis, seconded by Commissioner Helfrey. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, that hearing is closed. Next on the agenda, Mr. Vunich, PZ 23-23.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. The next item is PZ 23-23, Victoria and Anthony Cuzola, 1541 Clayton Woods Court, Wildwood, Missouri 63011. Care of Caitlin Blacklock, Sustainable Solar LLC, 4521 Town Court, St. Charles, Missouri, 63304. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the R2 15,000 square foot resident district with an associated planned environment unit, PEU, for the installation of roof mounted solar panels, which are to be so situated on the subject dwelling as to be visible from the adjoining roadway, with such being located on the west side of Clayton Woods Court, north of its intersection with Strecker Road. Street address 1541 Clayton Woods Court, St. Louis County, locator number 22U 510404. This request is to be reviewed in accordance with chapter 415.130 R2 15,000 square foot resident district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, which establish standards and requirements for the installation of solar panels. The requested permit is required due to the panel's placement on the rear facing area of the dwelling's roof, but visible from the adjoining roadway, Strecker Road, given the lot's double frontage. This particular property is located in Ward 2, and as with the other requests, the department would like to enter into the record the following items: the city's charter, the city's master plan, including the conceptual land use categories map, chapter 415-500 of the City of Wildwood's zone municipal code, the zoning ordinance, conditional use permit procedures, the file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning relative to this request, and all contents contained therein. And then finally, as part of tonight's public hearing, any testimony or evidence offered as part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first image of the department's presentation is again an aerial view of the location of this property that is backs up to Strecker Road, south of its intersection with Clayton Road. The next image shows the home, as was mentioned in the description that Mr. Vunich read into the record. The lot has double frontage, fronts onto Clayton Woods Court, with the rear of the home facing Strecker Road. But just draw your attention to the rear of the home in this image, where the panels are proposed to be placed in the proximity to Strecker Road. The next is again an image showing the proposed placement of the arrays. They again are on the rear of the home, facing Strecker Road. And the next few photographs are images of the rear of the home from Strecker Road. Through the trees, you can see a bit of the roof, and the department did carefully consider this request and determined that it does require a conditional use permit because of the visibility from the street. The next slide shows you more of the vegetation and the roof through the trees. Then another image. And that concludes the department's presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Do you have
Mr.
any
Chair.
speaker? Oh, Mr. Vunich.
If I could interrupt, just to add a comment to Mr. Newberry's presentation, we recognize in this particular instance, there is a mature set of trees that line the edge of Strecker Road and the rear yard area of the subject lot. If all those trees were evergreen in nature, the department would have probably not made the determination a permit is required, but several of them were deciduous in nature, which means during 6 months of the year, it will have no leaves on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Are there any speaker cards on this, Mr. Newberry?
Mr. Chair, the department hasn't received any speaker cards, but let me just verify on Zoom. The petitioner is present.
All right, come on up. Sure.
Anthony Cazzola, 1541 Clayton Woods Court, Ward 2. I'll be brief. Agree with the earlier petitioner, and a lot of his comments were ones that I would like to make also, but I will skip over those. I would also, if it was a front facing, I'm in favor of that too. This was a case where I didn't think I would need a conditional use permit since it is rear facing. And as you saw from those pictures, fairly well shielded. So the terminology of visible is very kind of subjective. It's not very visible. And 4 of those 6 trees are pine trees. So it's not like they're going to all lose their leaves. And actually the majority of it is covered by pine trees. So that was kind of a little bit of a surprise that I was required for this permit. The other comment is, I don't know when the ordinance was made, but the newer solar panels sit 9 inches off the roof. They're very low profile and really, in my opinion, don't look bad. So, I mean, that's the other thing that should be considered is the technology. They're not sitting up at a high angle like they used to in the old days. They're flat on the roof, 9 inches off the roof. So those are 2 things. The other thing I saw in some of the public comments, claims that it does not affect property value. I have not seen any study that says it doesn't actually increase it. And there's multiple studies out from Zillow, from the Assessors Association, and several others that are all recent that do show an increase in property value. So I think I just entered that as a fact also. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Humphrey, motion to close the hearing. Seconded by Councilman Brost. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That hearing is closed. All right, so next on the agenda, Mr. Vunich, PZ 25-23.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Bear with me here a second. The final public hearing tonight is PZ 25-23 Solus Real Estate LLC, care of Dustin Snyder, 18944 St. Albans Road, Wild, Missouri, 63038. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the NU non-urban district to accommodate the use of the subject property, which is located on the south side of St. Albans Road, west of State Route 100. Street address 18944 St. Albans Road, St. Louis County, locator number 23Y 220108, and over 5 acres in size, for the purposes of authorizing agricultural activities, specifically the research and development of products that are to be sold with the intent to increase their yields, improve their drought resistance, encourage the use of less soil additives, and or promote other common goals relative to growth and food production. These activities will occur in a controlled environment, including greenhouses and other buildings or structures. Proposed use, research, and development of agricultural products not intended for retail sale via an on-site sales room or within a traditional laboratory setting. This property is located in Ward 6. The petitioner has requested a postponement of this matter to the Monday, November 6, 2023 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Is there a motion? Just ask for a motion to postpone.
If you may, Mr. Chair, as part of the public hearing reading, the department would like to enter into the record the following items: the city's charter, the city's master plan, particularly the conceptual land use categories map, the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, chapter 415-500, which has the regulations for conditional use permit procedures, the file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning relative to this request, and all contents contained therein. And then finally, the testimony or evidence provided as part of tonight's public hearing. As was mentioned at the start of tonight's meeting under the Department of Planning comments, the department did receive a request for a postponement of this particular item from the petitioner. That request was received after the deadline, which is the Wednesday before the Monday night meeting, and therefore it does require an action of the Planning and Zoning Commission. As noted in the memorandum prepared for this particular item, the department offers no objection to the postponement. Mr. Newberry, Mr. Young, and I are available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Commissioner Humphrey.
I will make a motion to postpone.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Rubis. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
We will discuss that next month. All right. Let's see here. Mr. Vunich, PZ 8-23 and 8A-23.
Mr. Chair, as noted during the department's comments at the start of the meeting, there was a request filed by the petitioner to postpone this item to the November 6, 2023 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. That particular item was received before the deadline, and so tonight both items are postponed.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Helfrey.
Mr. Vunich, can I ask you a question about that, please? Just because I just kind of want to understand procedurally. If they had their public hearing and so what would they postpone? Because I guess I'm not, do they have to then have another public hearing if they're going to change anything from what they did with the initial public hearing?
The request was postpone final action of the Planning and Zoning Commission on the letter of recommendation. Typically, as the bylaws read, any action requiring a hearing or meeting, if received on Wednesday prior to the meeting on the Monday, the following Monday, it is an automatic postponement. I will say that the department, along with the city administrator and others, met with the petitioners. They have not offered to change the plan, but wanted additional time to at least consider the comments made by the commission as part of its action to deny the request.
So they had the public hearing. We did the initial meeting. We as a board said, denied it. And now they're postponing it so they could come back and they could change it between our denial and the second reading. And then if they changed it, would they have to go back through the first reading again? I guess I just am kind of I don't understand the logic behind it. I'm sorry.
The best analogy I can give is the Crestview project that was submitted by McBride Homes. As you know, a public hearing was held on that particular set of requests. That public hearing ended and there was a plan associated with it for over 130 attached residential units. Between the public hearing and final action, that plan changed dramatically. The density was reduced to 91 detached single-family dwellings on individual lots. So in both instances, whether it's a positive or negative action of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the petitioner is allowed to make request postponements and make changes in the hope of either gaining support of the city or addressing concerns of the residents or both. And so from that perspective, as I say, it's not unusual to have a petitioner with a recommendation for denial to try to figure out a solution or at least see what the next steps are once the commission takes final action.
Thank you for that explanation.
Certainly.
Mr. Newberry, PZ 2-23.
PZ 2-23, Ali Abar and Caitlin Abdul Hosseini, 17575 Thunder Mountain Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63025, care of ADT Solar and Jessica Pettit, 128 North Park Boulevard, Covington, Louisiana, 70433. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the NU non-urban residence district for the installation of roof-mounted solar panels, which are to be so situated on the dwelling as to be visible from the adjoining private roadway, with such being located at 17575 Thunder Mountain Road, St. Louis County locator number 27W310078, street address 17575 Thunder Mountain Road. This request is to be reviewed in accordance with Chapter 415.090 NU Non-Urban Residence District regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, which establishes standards and requirements for the installation of solar panels. The requested permit is required due to the panel's placement on the front-facing area of the roof of the dwelling, thereby causing them to be visible from the adjoining roadway. 25 panels. This property is located in Ward 6.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight a draft letter of recommendation regarding the requested conditional use permit for a solar energy system on the subject property. The department would note that today you received a revised page 7 that referenced a deletion that should have been made before the letter of recommendation was published, but was not. And so tonight, again, the department is referencing there has been a change to the document. You received that change today, and the department would note that the design does not require the elimination of 10 solar panels. The petitioner, as part of a revised submittal, was able to basically create the 51 panel system and create generally symmetry. And so tonight, the letter of recommendation based upon the vote of the commission is favorable, and the department would respectfully request a motion and a second to approve it as submitted with the single change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Commissioner Helfrey.
I will make a motion to approve with the single change.
All right. Seconded by Commissioner Clayton. So, all right. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson?
Just to reiterate, just because, only because you're my neighbors, I have to abstain. And obviously it was unanimous, and I just feel like it's the right thing to do because of we live just around the corner, but hey, go forth and conquer.
All right. Yeah, Commissioner Clayton second. Well, all right. No further discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Rubis.
Aye.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Abstain.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
and Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
We're about to enter into the portion of the agenda for information reports. I would note that 4 of the 5 information reports relate to solar energy systems. So again, tonight, the department is respectfully requesting that you consider the information report as the department's recommendation, and also, if you agree and vote accordingly, the letter of recommendation for final action. I would also ask the city attorney if it would be appropriate if we just read the titles tonight.
Yes.
And so from that perspective, we can save everybody a bit of time, but meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Chair, once the title is read, I would note that the first item, PZ 11-23, Susan and John Jacobson, we have recommended only the information report be acted upon tonight favorably. We do have a set of panels we'd like to discuss with the Jacobsons and their provider to see if we can find a solution to it. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Mr. Newberry.
I believe Mr. Vunich will read this one into the record.
Oh, I was thinking it already.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, you're going to have to listen to me a little bit more.
All right.
PZ 11-23, Susan and John Jacobson, 1503 Lace Bar Court, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005, care of Streeb Company, 9225 Watson Industrial Park, Crestwood, Missouri, 63126. This property is located in Ward 2.
All right. Okay, now Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration a recommendation or an information report with a recommendation. In this instance, the proposed array is displayed on the screen here. The panels that are visible from the street are on the front side of the side facing side of the home. The department is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission move this project forward with a favorable action tonight, with the condition that, as Mr. Vunich described, that we work with the petitioner and the solar provider to rearrange some of the visible panels so that they are generally symmetrical and largely create squares and rectangles. all of the other requirements are met and addressed in the proposed conditions by the department. And the next step in the process is intended to have a revised plan sheet that addresses this symmetry concern for presentation at the next meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And with that, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department concludes its brief presentation. It is available for any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Commissioner Cohn.
I make a motion to approve the department's recommendation.
All right, is there a second by Commissioner Clayton? Any discussion? Commissioner Helfrey?
No street trees have to be cut for these, right?
No, and in fact, in the conditions that have been prepared by the department, we address the removal of trees as part of any solar installation at this time until city council passes new legislation that would preclude that.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Commissioner, excuse me. Thanks for your patience. Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis. Commissioner Cohn.
Yes.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
And Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's hear. Next on the agenda, Mr. Vunich, PZ 14-23.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission. The next item is PZ 14-23, Stephen Degnan, 4024 Princeton Ridge Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63025, care of Sun Solar LLC, and Sherry Broman, 2531 North Patterson Avenue, Springfield, Missouri, 65803. Mr. Chair, I would just note that this is one of the items we are respectfully requesting action on the information report as the draft letter of recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department again has prepared for your consideration an information report with recommendation regarding this proposed roof-mounted solar energy system. As you can see from what's depicted on the exhibit before you, the panels that are side facing are visible from the private street, Princeton Ridge Drive. The department is, excuse me, let me back up. The overall system is a total of 54 panels with 33 of them determined to be visible from the abutting street. The department would note that in this location, given it is the NU non-urban residence district, the setback of the front of the home is a minimum of 50 feet. And you can see the side of the home sits behind the front of the home. And I would also note that there is mature vegetation in the side yards areas, both on the subject property and the neighboring property. And for these reasons, as well as the property's location near the end of a cul-de-sac, and all of this leading to limited visibility of the panels, the department is recommending approval. And again, as Mr. Vunich noted, final action at tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Commissioner Broyles. All right. Second by Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So the motion from Ms. Broyles that was seconded by Mr. Clayton is to approve the department's recommendation and to authorize and act upon favorably the letter of recommendation. Thank you.
All right. If no other discussion, roll call vote.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis. Commissioner Cohn.
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles.
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
And Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Let's see here. Mr. Vunich, PZ 4-23.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the next item is PZ 4-23, Jane Budnick, 404 Strecker Road, Wildman, Missouri, 63011, care of ADT Solar, and Nikki Rosario, 8124 Buckham Road, Building C, Caseyville, Illinois, 63223. And again, this is another item the department is respectfully requesting the commission's consideration as a information report, as well as the draft letter of recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department is prepared for your consideration and information report and draft letter of recommendation for consideration tonight. The subject property is located on Strecker Road. The proposed solar energy system array is located entirely on the front of the home. It's a total of 50 panels, each of which would be visible from the abutting street. Considering the unique characteristics of the property and the placement along Strecker Road, it's set back from the roadway and existing mature vegetation along the majority of the frontage of the property onto Strecker Road. The department, again, is recommending approval of this proposed solar energy system. And I do have some, if I can get it to. Just as a reminder from the public hearing, the mature vegetation along the street in front of the home. And that concludes the department's presentation. It's available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Discussion or motion? Commissioner Helfrey.
So once again, Mr. Vunich, in the paperwork, it says they can't cut down trees to put in the solar panels.
Yes, the department has, again, in attachment B, has a condition relating to tree removal.
Thank you very much. I make a motion to approve and also do a final letter of recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Helfrey. Is there a second? Commissioner Broyles, any further discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis.
Aye.
Commissioner Cohn.
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles.
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Chair Beatty
Yes.
and Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Before we move on, I guess that picture is from this. Looks like mid-April, judging by the trees.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. These are from the public hearing presentation. They were taken in May. Or
Okay.
the public hearing was held in May, so the photos were taken at the end of April.
Okay. I only asked because it looks like those trees on the street aren't shading any part of the roof, so. All right. All right, next on the agenda, PZ 3-23, Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the next item is PZ 3-23. Sarah and Patrick Wood, 17837 Wilderness Cliff Court, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005, care of Astra Watt Solar and Megan Murphy, 3525 Roanoke Road, Suite 110, Kansas City, Missouri, 64111. And this is the last of the information reports that the department is respectfully requesting the Planning and Zoning Commission consider also as the draft letter of recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department is prepared for your consideration and information report and draft letter of recommendation regarding this proposed solar energy system. The proposed system is depicted on the image as you see here, a photograph of the home with the panels imposed on them. The number of panels are 20 in total. They are all visible. The property has double frontage onto two streets that intersect. The department would just note that the proposed arrays are symmetrical, generally symmetrical, and meet all of the other underlying requirements in attachment B. They're outlined in attachment B, but also note that there is some mature vegetation in the front yard areas that does minimize the visibility of the panels to some extent in the seasons where there are leaves on the trees. So therefore, considering all of those factors, the department is recommending approval of the proposed, the requested conditional use permit.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Discussion or motion? Commissioner Helfrich,
I will make a motion to approve and final action.
second by Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion? All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Rubis,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohn, Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes, Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey, Chair Beatty,
Yes.
and Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Easy 18-23, Mr. Newberry.
PZ 18-23, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040. A request for the consideration of modifications to the city's code of ordinances, specifically chapter 415.030 definitions and chapter 415.090 in non-urban residence district, section C, conditional land use and development permits issued by the commission, which would allow for the addition of a new conditional type use to the existing list of them for the purposes of allowing agriculture, research and development activities as a function of a rural land use setting, along with the corresponding definition of the same, all wards.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you may recall at the September meeting, there was a discussion relating to Far Greenhouse and the new owner and the new owner's use of the property. At that time, the Planning and Zoning Commission authorized the consideration of a new conditional land use for the purposes of agriculture, research, and development activities. The department has prepared for your consideration tonight an information report with recommendation regarding the same. In the information report, the department notes that Wildwood is unique in many regards relative to its rural land use pattern. That rural land use pattern having large lots associated with it, lots oftentimes greater than 3 acres in size, and other characteristics that would lend well to the potential for research and development in rural settings through the non-urban resident district under the appropriate set of conditions. Tonight, the department has provided you an analysis that indicates that there are several rationales to support the potential addition of this type of conditional use in the NU non-urban resident district. Department would note that by adding this particular use to the non-urban resident district does not immediately authorize a conditional use permit. It gives the opportunity for consideration, and if consideration is favorable, then the establishment of conditions to ensure that in this rural setting, in a residential area, that the outcome of an authorization would not be detrimental nor impactful to the surrounding properties. And that again is done through the specific location, the permit for that specific location, and then the consideration of conditions based upon a submitted plan. So tonight, the department believes that from many reasons, the city should consider such, but again, allow the inclusion, but premised on an individual case-by-case analysis, and if favorable, with conditions associated with them to ensure that other requirements of the code, such as our environmental regulations, our outdoor lighting requirements, and others are always to be met. So tonight you have a favorable recommendation in this regard, and the department is available for any comments or questions regarding the same. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vinich.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Helfrey. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Mr. Dipler votes yes. Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus,
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty, or excuse me, Chair Beatty,
Yes.
and Councilmember Brost.
yes,
Thank you.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, Mr. Newberry, PZ 12-13.
A response from the Manors at the Meadows of Cherry Hills Homeowners Association to a request regarding PZ 12-13 Manors at the Meadows of Cherry Hills, care of McBride and Son Homes, Inc., R4 7,500 square foot residence district with a planned residential development overlay district, PRD, south side of Manchester Road at its intersection with Cherry Hills Meadows Drive, which seeks a modification to the site-specific governing ordinance, thereby eliminating the description that is set forth therein of the associated service lanes, alleys, as private in nature. Ward 8.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you will recall, two speakers at public comment tonight spoke regarding this particular matter. At the public participation, the speakers noted their desire to have the city accept their private alleys for public maintenance. Before that consideration can be undertaken, the ordinance in this particular instance does call out the alleys or service lanes as private. So therefore, tonight, there are two steps to the process. The first is to address the site-specific ordinance, which at this time precludes the consideration or favorable consideration of that conversion, and then the actual question relative to the acceptance. The department has prepared the letter before you tonight with recommendation regarding the change to the site-specific ordinance. In that letter with recommendation, the department is supportive of changing the word private, or in this case, eliminating the word private to just speak to asphalt service lanes. The rationale for this favorable recommendation principally is has been described. During the update of the town center plan, one of the items that was taken on by the volunteer committee was the discussion of private alleys in town center. Ultimately, the volunteer committee endorsed having all existing and future alleys to be public in nature. That recommendation was forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission and adopted as part of the town center plan. And ultimately, the action of the commission was endorsed and ratified by City Council. With such being undertaken and the town center plan now amended to accommodate this, the department believes that it is appropriate for consideration. Along with that item, the department notes in terms of practicality, these alleys were recently built. They were built to city standards for service lanes or alleys, and believes that they have been maintained to accommodate their acceptance in the future. All of this is premised on the new policy that City Council has adopted relative to acceptance of private improvements, and that policy would be applicable for this particular set of alleys. So tonight, the department is favorably recommending an amendment to the site-specific ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Commissioner Helfrey.
I vote to approve or accept the city's recommendation.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Commissioner Rubus. Any discussion? Commissioner Jackson.
Are we taking up items 1 and 2 because they seem very similar? We going in order 1, then 2?
Yes, I've sequenced them, so we'll have a favorable recommendation from the commission relative to the ordinance, and then the department will ask you to act upon the request for the transfer. Obviously, if the ordinance isn't amended by City Council, the transfer cannot occur.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Broyles,
yes,
Commissioner Clayton,
yes,
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohn,
yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes,
and Councilmember Brost.
yes,
Thank you.
motion carries. Thank you. And so now, Mr. Newberry, PZ 12-13 again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Read fast.
Thanks for the encouragement, Mr. Jackson. A recommendation report from the Department of Planning regarding the acceptance of a set of alleys that were platted as private, which are part of the Manors at the Meadows of Cherry Hills subdivision, PZ 12-13, Manors at the Meadows of Cherry Hills, care of McBride and Son Homes, Inc., with said review being consistent with the requirements of Chapter 89 zoning and planning of the revised statutes of Missouri when the city considers acceptance of major capital improvements for public purposes. This review by the Planning and Zoning Commission is also required under the city's policy for acceptance of private improvements, Ward 8.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, you will recall from our September meeting, this type of discussion was held there relative to Windsor Crest, the first of the new urbanism residential subdivisions approved and built in the city's town center. Tonight, a more recent addition to the city's town center, in terms of new urbanism residential developments, the Manors at the Meadows of Cherry Hills is seeking the same. In considering this particular request, similar to the other that was acted upon favorably by the commission in September, the department has provided an analysis and for all intents and purposes states that with the amendment of the town center plan, the request is reasonable. It also takes into account, as mentioned, the city's policy in this regard, and this particular letter with recommendation contains that policy. So you can see as commission members, the policy is substantial and does require this alleys to meet certain specifications before acceptance and maintenance by the city of Wildwood. The department would note that the requirement for the commission to consider is premised on state statute. And again, with terms of practicality, these alleys were recently built. They have been maintained well, and for all intents and purposes, should be able to comply with the policy once the Department of Public Works inspects and provides the checklist in this regard. So tonight, acknowledging the ordinance must be amended by City Council, the department is recommending the Planning and Zoning Commission favorably consider the transfer of these alleys from private to public maintenance. The department's available for any comments or questions, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Commissioner Helfrey.
I move to accept this city's recommendation.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Commissioner Broyles. Any discussion? Commissioner Rubus.
Thank you. You said that we will move these alleys to be from private to public. Does that mean public use?
Yes, with the acceptance of the alleys by the city of Wildwood, the public in principle can use the alleys. And this is particularly important in this instance because one of the alleys actually provides access to a portion of the city's trail system and its new pedestrian bridge that links the Manors at the Meadows of Cherry Hills to the enclaves of Cherry Hills. And so many of the residents in this particular subdivision during the construction of the pedestrian bridge and trail segments, I think grew accustomed to seeing some of the contractors' vehicles on the alley. And so from that perspective, it certainly makes sense to the department since we are already utilizing it for all intents and purposes for public access.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus.
Aye.
Commissioner Cohn.
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles.
Yes.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Motion carries. Thank you. So just as a question, how many more potential alleys are out there?
Well, that's a very good question. The original the second new urbanism subdivision was Canberry, but only a third of the overall project has alleys. And then there's the villages at Brightly and Main Street Crossing.
Okay. So just thinking about personal experience here over in Carriage Crossing, there's some alleys in there, is there not? Are those substandard?
Yes, they were built prior to the incorporation of the city and would not meet any of the requirements relative to the alleys and their specifications under the town center plan. Certainly they can petition, but I think in that particular instance, as you've described, the hill may be a little steeper to climb.
Okay. I lived in Victoria Crossing, and I know we didn't really have alleys, but we had private streets that at the time, now 20 years ago when I lived there, we were spending about 30 grand a year replacing broken up concrete. And we were hoping the city would take it over, but I remember being told at the time that concrete wasn't thick enough.
Yes, and as I say, certainly the homeowners association, the master, as well as the individual 7 villages, they can petition for such, but they would have to adhere to the policy.
Okay. Are the areas with single family homes, are those private streets as well?
The single family dwellings, no. My recollection is that the garden condominiums and then the townhomes are the only ones that have access via private streets.
Okay. All right. Just curious. Yes, sir.
I'll never forget that. The new developments like the McBride development, is there alleys in that?
Yes, there is.
Is it the city's intention to take those over immediately?
The proposed ordinance calls them out to be private still, premised on the characteristics. As you recall, with the Crestview project, the alleys abutted on off-street parking and other improvements. From the department's perspective, we're just trying to avoid a situation where we're being asked to maintain private alleys, now public, that could create issues for our contractors. For example, in the Canberry project, the decks extend out to the edge of the alley. There's no separation. Supports, the posts are there. In clearing them during a snow or ice event, obviously there's some risk there. So in the instances where the department's recommended acceptance, it is based upon those items in the analysis, but also the fact that there's a green area between the improvements, the home, garage, et cetera, and the alley. There is a safety zone, so to speak.
So would the McBride alleys be acceptable to the city?
Under the revised design, I would believe so, yes.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to note that that's why I asked you to pull up and show me which ones were not on that particular issue the last time. Because I was like wondering why they weren't going to be public. So
I will say there's a reluctance on the part of the departments, because again, not all alleys were created equal. And so when some of the alleys were created, there was not a city of Wildwood. And then in the other instance, they were intended to be private forever. And so what we allowed for private alleys is not necessarily what we believe is appropriate for public alleys, given safety and function concern. But ultimately, all of them can petition, and certainly discussion would travel through the commission to city council.
And then, all right, PZ 20 and 21-22, Mr. Newberry.
The recommendation report of the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding its consideration and action relative to PZ 20 and 21-22, Greenberg Development Company LLC, Wildwood GBK LLC, PO Box 486, Wildwood, Missouri 63038, on certain requests received from the developers of this project seeking modifications to the second amended C8 Plan Commercial District, amended C8 Plan Commercial District, C8 Plan Commercial District with a conditional use permit CUP to accommodate alterations to the preliminary design components of this major mixed-use development, southwest corner of Taylor Road and Main Street. Street address is 16700, 16720, 16727, 16780, and 16795 Main Street, St. Louis County. Locator numbers 23V310561, 23V10570, 23V 310581, 24V630303, and 24V630312, thereby allowing for greater latitude in building design and placement. Ward 8.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'm sure you remember this particular development project from our recent discussions that have occurred within the last several months. This is a major mixed-use development that is located in the heart of the city's town center, that heart being Main Street and Taylor Road intersection. During the discussion of this particular project and the multiple components of it, it was always an acknowledgement, I believe, on the part of the Planning and Zoning Commission that there was not a defined developer for the multiple family component, as well as the single family detached dwellings on individual lots. The engineer and the developer of record, Greenberg Development, were doing their best to work with the characteristics of the site and provide a template that would be acceptable to a future developer or developers. And that's the case that is before you tonight. There are two developers, one a multiple family type, the other a single family type, that now have been brought into the project, reviewed the plan, and have requested amendments to the ordinance to accommodate the plan that's before you tonight. Plan before you tonight does not increase the number of multiple family units. That stays at 189. What that plan does, though, is add a skywalk between what was to be two separate buildings and now, under the building code interpretation, becomes a single building for the purposes of that consideration. And so tonight, the department is supportive of the skywalk. It believes it will improve the livability of the apartment development and add a very unique architectural feature over Eastgate Lane that not many town centers, at least in the Midwest, can claim. Also, as part of the redesign, Eastgate Lane has been modified. It is no longer the public street that was originally intended, but becomes a private access street with public easement upon it. As you can see, by changing it from a public street, the developer of the multiple family component can now bring parking close to the units. And that was a major concern of the Department of Planning and this Planning and Zoning Commission when reviewed. The street separated the units from the parking, which meant tenants would have to walk across the street to access their units. And that would occur in all types of weather situations. Additionally, the single family developer has asked for an additional 3 units. The redesign of the single family portion has improved it substantially. It's increased the green space. It's provided an ample buffer from the roundabout at Taylor Road and Manchester Road to the nearest single family detached dwelling. And it has placed the sides of the units facing toward Taylor Road, Manchester Road. Those sides will have to comply with all of the architectural treatments that you typically would expect on the front of the dwellings. All told, there were 7 requested amendments by the development team now working on this particular project. One of those was not included in the department's recommendation, and that relates to the hard court or pickleball component. Again, the developer in this case, Greenberg Development, has agreed to work with the city to create 4 hard court surfaces on the orphan piece of property east of Taylor Road and make them fully utilized for public purposes, no longer just for the tenants themselves. That partnership is working forward to create an attractive recreational feature for the development itself and all of the residents of Town Center and Wildwood. Tonight, the other 6 are before you for favorable action. The department believes the requests are appropriate and will improve the development as presented on the preliminary development plan tonight. The developers are well-known, Green Street Development, and from the perspective of the single-family detached dwellings, a well-known builder that does very nice homes. And so from the perspective of the department, it is, in its opinion, not a major change, but a tailoring of the development to address improvements that will ultimately make it a better town center project for all. So tonight, the department is presenting you the rationales with the changes in the proposed ordinance for your favorable consideration. I would note that Mr. Young, Mr. Newberry, and I are available for any comments or questions. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. All right. Would the petitioner like to speak? Or, oh, the petitioner's representative. Is that?
Mr. Young, is that acceptable if the commission should concur?
Yes, that's fine.
Good evening, Joel Oliver from Green Street Development, 4565 McCree. I also have another member of my team here, Aaron McMurray, who also had a card filled out, and then a member of our design team, Tom Young, is on the Zoom also. So we're very happy to be here this evening. We were really thrilled when the Greenbergs contacted us with the opportunity to get to work on this project together. Green Street, let's see, I'll wait for the prettier pictures. Green Street's been around for about 15 years now. We've completed over $1 billion worth of development throughout the region. We're best known for our work in the city of St. Louis, but we do quite a bit of work in the county also. You know, we're currently active in Clayton, Brentwood, Creve Coeur, other municipalities around town. We take being local very seriously. To click the arrow, go to the next slide. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to tell you very briefly about our team. I do think it is very important to note to everyone that as we've iterated through this process since we joined after the previous ordinance was passed, we've been very sensitive to the work that's already been done. We've verified the traffic study that has already been conducted and reviewed, but very minimal impact through this new plan. So it's still relevant. That's been confirmed. The geotech work and the phase 1s that were previously completed are still relevant in this scenario. So first, let me tell you a little bit about us. Like I said, we were founded in 2008. We've developed over 5 million square feet of real estate throughout the region. That's over 40 projects. We're the 3rd largest commercial development shop in town. At the bottom there, you see all of our multitude of affiliated companies. It is a smorgasbord what projects they work on. As you'll see in a second, we're actually working with a separate architect and construction company that are owned on this project. We believe that every project has to be thoughtfully evaluated on what your team looks like. I believe this is also be public record. So some of this will be hard to read, but you all have it at your leisure. This goes through just a litany of the projects that we've done over those 15 years. As you'll see, one thing that's unique about Green Street is our ability and kind of deep bench of doing many different types of projects is a benefit in our opinion versus developers who are solely focused on one thing and kind of myopically view solutions. So You have the Armory building in the city of St. Louis, 250,000 square feet converted into destination entertainment versus multifamily office retail. So we take great pride in that. We have a very diverse group of talent on our team. I would not tell you that I'm good at every one of those things, but I have people on my team that are. That's me, that's Aaron, and that's Tom. We've also partnered with 2 local firms, the first being Roseman and Associates and Arco Construction, who both have successfully done work not only in Wildwood, but in the town square. These are both firms we've done many projects with in St. Louis and outside of St. Louis. We have a great working history and are thrilled to be working with them on this project. So tonight, the updates that are before you really are driven by 3 things we looked at. We want to reinforce the urban planning strategies and principles. The frontage on both Main and Taylor are very important for you because it's your town square, but also for us developing a really important anchor asset here. We're very thoughtful about the setbacks, the connections to the town square and the trail system, that we have an appropriate scale for everything that's around it, and making sure the circulation works well. We want to improve the Wildwood Town Center pedestrian experience for our new tenants, but also for the current residents. We want people who live within the multifamily building or in the single family homes to be able to very easily get to Deerbergs, to go see a movie, to have dinner, and have that be a good experience, but not at the sake of compromising the experience for people who live here that are enjoying the trail system or all of those other amenities. We also always have an eye to how do we improve the tenant resident experience. Multifamily development as an asset class has changed dramatically in the last decade. It has some stigma in the past for what people view. The reality is the demographics in the world have changed. New multifamily, this being an example, is a luxury product. We generally see kind of what we call bookends. So that's usually young professionals who grew up somewhere like Wildwood, but maybe can't or don't want to buy a home yet. This gives people an opportunity. Then on the other end, you a lot of times have people who don't want a big house or a yard, maybe don't want to buy a condo. This gives options, but you have to thoughtfully deliver that product for it to be successful. So as was mentioned, having the 2 separate buildings creates a little bit of an issue with where do you put your amenities? Where do you put a state-of-the-art fitness center? Because then if you live in the other building, you maybe feel like you're getting a lesser experience. We try to be thoughtful about those things. Kind of curating an experience is what I like to say, because people want that sense of community. They don't just want somewhere to live. So we're going to show you a handful of images tonight just for comparison to give some kind of context. So I will tell you the 3 images that you'll see of the previous scheme we took those plans and we put them into the format so they match the same. So you have not seen these exact images before, but the underlying massing is what you saw before. You also are very intentionally seeing yellow boxes because we're obviously not talking about brick color tonight. Very intentional. We want you to have kind of the scope and the scale. So what was previously approved was the backward E shape and the detached multifamily building by the theater and the separate single family lots that mainly fronted on Old Manchester. So this is the view concept of what we're proposing now. It's more of an L-shaped building with the sky bridge over the street that people can drive underneath. That allows the parking fields to be closer to the building. It allows you to more efficiently build covered parking for future residents. As you see, there's now more green space. There is a better understanding of how detention will work for the full site concept. This plan, for instance, has a no retaining wall around the one detention basin. There was a very large retaining wall before. That's not a great user experience if you can avoid it. And we believe that the site concept plan makes a better experience. We've also, by rearranging the single family portion, are able to more effectively deal with water quality, water treatment at the corner to make that something that's an attractive feature and also create a better sense of place for those single family homes. So it'll feel more like a subdivision than with having shared access drives, et cetera. So we have 2 more views of this. This was the view from this angle. And there it is there. I'm not going to go through the things in the bottom left corner because I covered them very effectively. And then I thought this view is important for if you're in town square in your helicopter looking down what would have been Eastgate, you would have seen this before, and this is what you'd see now. So it's a little hard to tell that what you're seeing under the Skybridge portion of it, But the intention there is that is still anybody could use. There's not a gate, there's no arms or anything that restricts anyone from being able to use those. You do still see on the plan right next to the theater, the large outdoor pedestrian gathering area between this building and the movie theater that was preserved. I'm going to go back to one other thing that you can see right there the best. If you notice in this plan, in the previous drive between the multifamily building and the single family homes, you'll notice it looks like it's floating up in the air. The reality is the previous plan would have had a very, very significant retaining wall all the way along Taylor. That is doable, that's constructible. There's a cost to do that. And it's not a great pedestrian level experience if you're on the street, if you're walking down the road. What you'll notice in this version, and it's kind of hard to tell from this angle, is there's actually a stair step in that building about mid-leg on Taylor that brings that down to grade. So as you're walking along Taylor, kind of your street level pedestrian experience, you're not walking along a retaining wall, you're walking more along a building. So we thought that was important to accomplish. So I think that sums those things up. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any, and we're really thrilled to be able to work with you guys on this. I think it'll be a great addition.
All right. Commissioner Broyles.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rubis.
Is the bottom level of the facility still commercial?
On the main frontage, there's been no change to any of that language that was in the ordinance.
That was my question as well. Wanted to make sure you keep the first floor retail on Main.
That would not change that verbiage.
Commissioner Jackson.
So there's plenty of parking because I mean, on Main Street, I come down, I go to B&B, I go eat dinner, Benedetto's quite a bit. And I definitely like to be able to park. And if people they're living here or they'll start utilizing those spaces and I have nowhere to park.
That's a great question. So I think it's number, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to bounce over your head. So second to last bullet point there, section 4D3. So in the original ordinance, it was asking for 368 parking spaces. We are amending that to 361 parking spaces. The original ordinance, though, did not take into account that there is currently a cross-access agreement in place with the movie theater for 50 parking spaces. And the way that we analyze parking is not really on a per unit base, but more on a per bed base. So as you analyze how many bedrooms, what the mix looks like, there's just math that goes into that. I would tell you this is still very conservative and the way we evaluate it anywhere in a suburban community like this. So we do not anticipate any parking issues. It's actually very detrimental to us if there is, so people that live here don't want to park far away. They don't want to park, in the town center garage. So we believe it's appropriate and that still conforms to the Lockmuller opinion.
All right, Commissioner Broyles.
Ms. Broyles, excuse me, if you could turn your microphone on. Ms. Stepler can't hear you.
Yeah. The pickleball courts, are there 4?
Yeah, that
4.
and we're following the lead of the city and their engineers on what goes there. So that we're
Well, they're right on.
we're following you guys.
They're right on.
I agree.
And then that space there, how much other space is there? Is there lounging space? Is there park benches over there? Is there enough room for those? And you're not going to tear all the trees out. That house is going to be gone.
Are we talking about all around the pickleball court area?
Yeah,
The home will stay.
the house is staying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the house is still privately owned by someone else, not us.
Oh, okay.
We are fully following the city's direction on everything.
Okay, I didn't know.
proximity To the pickleball.
I didn't
So
know.
You want benches? Just gotta ask.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The design, that four-court
Yes.
diagram, that is the same design that was approved by City Council for Community Park. So the challenge the department issued to the park designer and Stock and Associates, the engineer of record, is to take that design that had received approval from City Council and see if it would fit in on this particular property. It did require some alteration to the parking layout as well as the stormwater management facility. But the intent is not to go south where we have to remove any of the tree line.
Thank you.
I'll come to you in one sec, but while we're on the topic of pickleballs, will the courts be lighted?
At this stage, the courts in Community Park were not, so we did not add lighting at this location.
Okay, Commissioner Rubis.
Is the medians on Taylor Road going to be changed at all? Or is the lanes as they are today going to stay?
Currently planned to stay as it is. There's not a recommendation to change that.
I would note in response to that question from Mr. Rubis, the city does have a project that I believe is scheduled for 2024 to improve Taylor Road from State Route 100 to the Manchester Road roundabout and to address the timing at Route 100 and Taylor Road in terms of the traffic signals. And Mr. Brown is here and he can give you a lot more details if the chair would let him speak.
Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I don't need to take your time, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them. We are working on finalizing the plans and we are trying to work with the developer on some of the details relative to a potential crosswalk at the pickleball courts so we can get folks across the road safely, potentially with flashing beacons as we did to the north that you might be aware of between Main Street and Route 100. So with our project, we are going to do some minor tweaks to the ends of the islands at the intersections to try to improve the ability of trucks to get through those intersections. So there will be some work done, but otherwise the median islands should remain as they are currently. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to address
And so I'm assuming, is there going to be a full resurfacing of Taylor Road next year then?
Yes, the project will be a full resurfacing of Taylor Road, and it's planned to occur next year, yes.
All right, thank you, because that road is getting bad. My opinion. Any further
We do
questions?
currently also have contemplated that on our side of Taylor that we would replace the entire section of sidewalk also. Just through the normal construction process, so it's not, left in a worse state.
Would would the oaks be preserved still? The street trees?
We would have to look into that. It's not something we've specifically talked about, but generally wherever we can preserve trees, we do. So we'll work with city staff on that.
Okay, those are my opinion. Again, that's the one spot in the city, the street trees look good.
I'd always rather keep a mature tree than have to replace a mature tree. So
Commissioner Helfrey?
So can I make a recommendation to approve the city's recommendations? No, yes? That's my recommendation.
Commissioner Helphy, I believe you are making a motion to approve the department's recommendation as presented.
As presented, yes.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, Commissioner Depler?
Thank you. Just had a quick question. So the frontage on Main Street looks significantly different. And, it's not, I didn't see a lot of details on like what the Sky Bridge is going to look like. Is that going to, allow like large trucks to get back into that parking area behind the buildings?
the large trucks would not enter that way. Large trucks would enter off of the Taylor access road.
So what is the height of that Sky Bridge look like?
So I can't give you an exact number, but I would imagine it's in the 9 to 10 foot range. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And is it the width of the current Eastgate Street?
Approximately.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
wide enough for two cars. And I believe there's a center island that'll be there too to separate traffic.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohn, Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes, Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes,
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Thank you.
motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So next, Mr. Newberry, appointment from the commission to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Mr. Chair, very briefly, and with your assistance, with the appointment of the officers at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the next step is to appoint a liaison position to the Historic Preservation Commission from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I believe Commissioner Boyles has been doing that, correct? Are you willing to continue serving?
Willing to continue. I don't know if I don't get to vote. That's an issue for me.
Motion.
You can accept nominations from the floor. And if there are multiple nominations, there is a process we follow.
I nominate Ms. Broyles.
Second, Councilman Gross. It doesn't look like it. I used to have a second one, but they took it away from me.
Wow, so you have a motion and a second.
Any other nominations? All right, seeing none,
Voice vote.
voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Congratulations. I'm sorry. I get to vote, but I barely get to talk.
Changes to the composition of the Historic Preservation Commission will be on City Council's agenda next Monday.
All right.
Hey,
Commissioner.
With regard to Commissioner Boyle's question about voting, the liaison, the ARB from both the planning and zoning and from the city council can vote. Isn't that the intention for the Historic Preservation Board?
It certainly is what the change is recommended by the commission itself.
Thank you.
So I guess you might get to vote.
hey, Beatty.
Yes, sir.
I think the last thing on here is Miss Helfrey wanting to move the thing to 6:30, the P and Z, so she can get here in time. Even though for sure, once a month, I will not make Star Trek Deep Space Nine o'clock, but I'm willing to sacrifice.
I mean, there is TiVo.
Now you're dating yourself. So I have a question. Does that pose a problem for the city employees that have to be here all day if we move it later? Because I miss seeing Cindy Depler. Quite honestly, I miss her.
In response to Commissioner Helfrey's question, the Planning and Zoning Commission, not many years ago, used to start their meetings at 7:30 in the evening. So 6:30 isn't bad.
Oh, can we make a motion to, okay, I'm going to make a motion that we start at 6:30. It's my motion.
Commissioner Rubus. All right. So Commissioner Depler, does 6:30 give you time to get here in person?
It will make it definitely more plausible. I can't guarantee it every time, but yes.
That's fair. So all those in favor of moving it to 6:30, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Any closing remarks?
Other than my victory lap on solar. Motion to adjourn.
Wait.
Oh.
If somebody's talking, I can't hear them.
Turn your mic on. Commissioner.
Sorry. I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to both of you and whoever else, all your compadres that help you.
Somebody else.
Huh?
Motion to adjourn. Oh, second, motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Commissioner Jackson, probably. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. See you at 6:30 next month.